Cause this what they gon' play when they wipe they prints off the hammers.
The music, murder music, murder music, murder music.
Yeah.
Yeah, murder music, murder music, murder music.
Yeah, they make it look white, kill you for nothing cause they petty. Cutting the dog food with the fetty. They young but they ready, no crowd, I get my applaud.
In 1984, a family was asleep in their home and was awoken by an intruder. He would attack them with a claw hammer. But first, he did the most gruesome things to them. Would any of the family members survive through the night? Hello, my name is Holly, and this is the Murder She Shed, the place we discuss the dead right from my she shed. I'm going to give a warning to this video. It does involve essay of children and violence, so viewer discretion is advised. First, make sure you hit that subscribe button so you can hear rarely told true crime right from my she shed. And if you enjoy a good Southern accent, I have that. Bruce and Deborah Bennett had met and married right before he had joined the Navy in 1976. After leaving the Navy, they settled down in Aurora, Colorado. Around Thanksgiving of 1984, they moved just a few miles in the same town to a new house that seemed like a quiet, safe neighborhood. Since they were raising two little girls, a safe neighborhood was a priority. Melissa, their oldest daughter, was 7, and the youngest, Vanessa, was 3 years old. The couple worked at the family-owned furniture store together. Bruce's two uncles owned this store. On January 15, 1984, the family was cleaning and decorating the house for the birthday party they were having for Melissa, who was 7 and fixing to turn 8 in 2 days. But they were having her party early. She was okay with that. It was a great day with the family, but as Connie, whom was Bruce's mother, pulled out of the driveway at 9 p.m., she noticed the garage door was open, but just didn't think much about it. Debbie and the two girls were worn out from the party, so after Debbie tucked the girls in bed for the night, she went and gave Bruce a kiss on the cheek and told him she was going to bed. She was tired. Good night. Bruce was settled in on his recliner, reading the newspaper. After some time had passed, he fell asleep while reading. He woke up about an hour later and decided just to head upstairs to bed, completely forgetting about the open garage. As Bruce was drifting off to sleep, he heard a noise and thought it sounded like the stairs creaking when Melissa tries to sneak down for a snack. He wondered how she could even be hungry after all the things she had at her party. Bruce decided to go check. He got almost to the bottom of the stairs and suddenly remembered he had forgotten to close the garage door. But just as he was having that thought, a dark figure appeared at the bottom of the stairs. He turned in order to try running back up the stairs to his family. Suddenly, he felt a burning pain on the back of his head and felt warmth running down his neck. He tried to take a couple of more steps, but he felt more pressure and finally dropped to the ground. As he lay there drifting in and out of darkness, he seen the stranger reach toward his face with a large blade and felt it slice his neck. As he took his last breath, he could hear the stranger walking up the stairs toward his family. Meanwhile, Deborah had awoke after hearing some weird noises and noticed Bruce still had not came to bed. She wondered what in the world he was doing this late at night. She could hear footsteps in the hallway and figured Bruce was just finally coming on to bed. She thought about time. She heard their bedroom door creak open and sensed instantly it was not Bruce. It was almost like a strong presence of evil she felt. She rose up from the bed and was in the process of thinking what she could use as a weapon when Deborah suddenly felt pain on the side of her face. She felt her mouth fill with blood. She then felt pain on her shoulder. As she fell back onto her bed, she could see the shadow of what looked like a hammer on the wall. The man grabbed her and pulled her nightgown off. Deborah tried fighting, but just was too weak. As the stranger essayed her, her thoughts only went to her girls, and she wondered if Bruce was able to get them to safety. Suddenly, everything went dark. The next day, at the furniture store, Bruce's uncle was concerned when Bruce and Deborah didn't show up for work. It was not like them not to call. If they were going to be late, they always called. He attempted to call Bruce several times but received no answer, so he called Connie. Bruce's mom instantly knew something was not right, so she drove to Bruce and Deborah's house and noticed their vehicles was in the garage, but that garage door was still wide open. The door leading into the house was cracked, and as she walked in and neared the stairs, laying at the bottom of the stairs was her son, almost unrecognizable from all the blood and blows to the head. She called out the names of the other family members and received no answer. So she quickly called 911. As the officers entered, they located Bruce first. He was laying in a pool of blood and appeared to be beat on the head and body. Blood splatter was all over the stairway and walls, with fingerprints on the walls too. So they went upstairs and entered a bedroom where they found Deborah. She was laying face down at the foot of the bed, naked from the waist up, with only white underwear on. She lay in a pool of blood with a tooth found beside the bed. It appeared as though her purse had been dumped. As the officers continued down the hallway, they came up on a scene that they never would forget. Melissa's body was found on the floor at the foot of one of the twin beds. She was lying on her back, naked from the waist down. It appeared as if her pajamas had been cut off of her little body. The pajamas had been tucked under her bottom, and her legs were bent and spread apart. She had been essayed, and there was severe damage to that area. Her little body was basically mutilated during the attack. Her arms and hands were positioned above her head with lacerations to the right palm. Her head had been caved in. As they were recovering from shock of what they had seen, they heard what sounded like a small cry. Between the other twin bed and the wall was a bloody teddy bear, and under that teddy bear was 3-year-old Vanessa, who was in critical condition but still clinging to life. She was flown to Children's Hospital, where she was given 3 units of blood. The right side of her face had been caved in, and she appeared to be paralyzed on the left side of her body. She also showed signs of SA. Between the twin beds was a white comforter, and on that comforter was a bloody partial footprint from the design of a clutter hiking boot. A bloody knife was found in the snowy driveway. The ME report said the main weapon looked to be a claw hammer, but the killer had used the knife along with the hammer on Bruce. After Aurora residents got word of the gruesome murder of the Bennett family, people were being extra vigilant. Some of them was even wearing a helmet to bed for protection. 12 days later, the hammer killer attacked again, but this time it was in Arizona. In the early morning hours on January 27, 1984, Roy Williams was awakened by an intense pain in his head. He woke to see a man standing over him with a large rock. Despite the intensity of the pain, he tried to stay calm. He asked the man, "Why are you doing this?" That seemed to take the man off guard. Roy was able to get him talking eventually, calming him down. The man then ran off into the night. Man, that Roy must have been a talker. I need those kind of talking skills. Maybe Roy can teach me a few things. Roy did not see his attacker. It had been too dark. But the police found shoe impressions on the ground outside. 7 hours later, a patrol officer noticed a disheveled man hitchhiking near a large truck stop. The officer asked the man if he could just have a look at the bottom of his shoes. The tread appeared to match the impressions found at the crime scene. So the officer asked the man if he would just come down to the station for further questioning. The man bolted. Police found him about 30 minutes later, hiding behind a bush. Roy survived his encounter with broken ribs, and 100 stitches were put in the gash on his head caused by being struck by a hammer. His attacker was a 20-something former construction worker with a long history of theft and burglary charges. He used the construction work in order to find out more about the houses that he stalked. His name was Alex Christopher Ewing. Authorities did not connect this attack to the murders in Aurora, Colorado. Due to overcrowding at the Arizona jail, Ewing was sent to a jail in Utah until his trial. Finally, on August 9th, 1984, Ewing was due back in Arizona to stand trial for his attacks on Roy. He and several other inmates were taken for the 5-hour trip in 2 vans, each with 1 guard. Do you see where this is going? None of the inmates were shackled or restrained in any way. The caravan stopped at a gas station in Henderson, Nevada to fill up on gas and let the prisoners use the bathroom. Ewing was in the second group of prisoners escorted to the bathrooms, while the guard who was supposed to be watching over him was distracted by signing the gas receipt. Ewing slipped away. It was only after the inmates were all loaded up and getting ready to leave that another inmate asked where he was. Then only about an hour later, a 911 call came in. The woman on the other end of the line was 24-year-old Nancy Berry. She was in a panic, saying she had seen a man standing at her back door holding an axe handle.
Tell me what happened. Just like with a club.
She ran upstairs, but he followed her and began hitting her and her husband Chris with the axe handle. She said she'd played dead to get him to stop. When police arrived, they found the Berries in serious condition. They were both covered in bruises and blood. A broken, bloody axe handle was left on a table. Both of Nancy's hands were broken from trying to just defend herself. Chris had more severe injuries to his head and suffered permanent brain damage. Chris underwear was soaked through with blood, and he was crawling basically through the closet trying to get away because he thought that Ewing was still in the house. The couple's 2 children were unharmed. It was strongly suspected that it had been Alex Ewing. For 3 days, there was no sign of the violent escaped convict. Then a telephone operator called the police with information. A man had made a collect call from a payphone. Remember those? The operator heard the man tell his relative that he had escaped. So she put 2 and 2 together. So 2 National Park Rangers went to the phone the operator had identified and began searching the area. Soon enough, they spotted him. He tried to run, but the Rangers chased him down. He only surrendered when one of the Rangers threatened to shoot him. Ewing was charged with 2 counts of attempted murder with a deadly weapon, escape, and burglary. It took the jury less than 2 hours to come back with a guilty verdict. He was sentenced to the maximum under Nevada law, 110 years. In light of his steep sentence, the state of Arizona dropped their original charges against him for the Roy Williams attack. Meanwhile, back in Aurora, Colorado, the residents had never been told that before the Bennett family had been attacked, there had been several attacks by a man with a hammer before the Bennetts were even murdered. And those attacks happened within 2 weeks of each other. The first attack 2 weeks before the Bennetts were murdered was married couple Kim and Jim Hobbins from Aurora. During the early hours of January 4th, 1984, Jim was making a mixtape for an exercise program while Kim went to bed early. Remember those cassette tapes? You could just record whatever you wanted to off of the radio and just say you had that song. Free. Absolutely free. Those were the days. Then Jim joined his wife at around 2 a.m., but he had forgotten to lock the garage door. The two were attacked by someone wielding a hammer. Sometime later in the night, Jim woke up to a hammer blow to his face, and the attacker later flung the same weapon at Kim, giving her a concussion. While an injured Jim went after the assailant, Kim called 911. However, the authorities couldn't find the person responsible that night. Only 6 days later, he would attack again. Donna Holm met Ronald when he was a pilot and she was a flight attendant. They moved in together after falling for each other. They lived in Aurora, Colorado, and on January 10th, 1984, Ronald was away on an overnight flight. That evening, Donna bought a gift for Ronald before picking up some groceries and then going home. She then checked her mail and pulled into her garage. She never thought about being unsafe in her own garage. Here, her memory goes blank until she wakes up in the hospital. Ewing had attacked her from behind with the hammer. Then Donna was dragged out of the car and Ewing essayed her in the garage. The police believe Donna stayed on the floor for hours before she regained consciousness. After waking up, she was able to make her way to the bedroom where she just crawled into the fetal position into bed and went to sleep. She could not think clear enough to even call 911. 24 hours later, Ronald returned back home. Ronald knew something was wrong when he seen blood on the step of the porch. He ran inside and up to the bedroom where he turned Donna over and seen her naked with blood all over the bed. She had a big dent in her head. He quickly called 911. Worried about the assailant returning to finish the job, Ronald would sleep with a gun at the hospital until police protection was assigned to Donna. Now that is a man. That is awesome. After Donna awoke, she had the mentality of a 2-year-old. In a second, I'm going to show a short video then because they are the cutest couple. Ronald asked Donna to marry him by laying dried beans on a table and spelling out the words, "Will you marry me?" Donna and Ronald got married in May of 1984, just months after the attack, while she was still recovering, relearning how to do even the most basic things like speaking and eating. Most couples' relationships would not have survived something so traumatic, but Ronald and Donna have been married for 30 years and still live in Aurora with their pet dog. You have to see them. They are absolutely adorable together. I fell in love with them just as soon as I seen them. I could feel their kind hearts just shine through the video.
The relationship was slow to get off the ground.
He asked me out 2 years before we started dating.
The second time I asked her out if she wanted to play racquetball, because I was a good racquetball player.
I don't do
She
sports.
said no.
Finally,
Then he asked me out actually for drinks.
a yes.
I can handle that.
Drinks turned into dating, and that turned into living together and talking marriage.
And do you remember when did you get married then?
We got married.
May 30th.
1984. May 30th, yeah. Now you passed.
Pretty good.
Yes, you did. I'm impressed.
My efforts were not to hate him specifically, although he's an evil person. My efforts went towards helping Donna recover and being there for her.
In 2018, they learned that investigators believed her attacker was Alex Christopher Ewing. No charges will ever be filed in her case, but last week Ewing was convicted of murdering Bruce and Deborah Bennett and their daughter Melissa. Donna and Ron were there for closing arguments.
I think I'm past the anger. He's getting justice being done here.
He did that to my body, but not my soul.
Just the next night after Donna was attacked, Ewing would attack Patricia Lewis Smith, but she would not survive. Patricia was an interior designer and had clients all over Denver. Her daughter was going through a bad divorce, so her and the children moved in with Patricia until she could get back on her feet. On January 10th, Patricia went and got a burger from Wendy's and brought it home so she could eat alone in her house, or at least she thought she was alone. Patricia had left the garage door open because as soon as she ate, she was just going to go run another errand. Sometime during this time, Ewing entered through the garage door, and S.A. Patricia beat her to death with a hammer and placed her in a similar pose as 7-year-old Melissa. Her daughter and 2 grandchildren later that evening walked in the house to a tragic scene they would never forget. Patricia was only laying 6 feet from the front door with her grandchildren's blanket on her head. Under the blanket, near her head, was her murder weapon, the hammer. There had been 17 hits to her head. 5 days later, the Bennetts were murdered. In 2018, Ewing's DNA was matched to the Bennett family's crime scene, but he was not convicted until 2021. The judge said during sentencing to Ewing, "Nothing I have ever seen approaches the depravity of the actions you exhibited in this case." He received 3 consecutive life sentences for the 3 lives he took. And Ewing was just convicted of Patricia's murder in April of this year, 2022. The time limit had run out to charge him on the assaults, but even now he will never see the light of day. If you have learned one lesson from my video today, let it be to keep your garage door shut after entering your home. The Colorado Hammer Killer came in this way every stinking time. Keep it shut, even if you think it's only going to be a short time. That is the safe thing to do. Now, if you enjoyed my telling of this true crime case, just make sure you smash that subscribe button before you go. And of course, per usual, here are me and Simon's bloopers. All right, guys, I love y'all, and I hope y'all have a blessed, super, wonderful, amazing week. Bye. 1994, 40, what's boy? 1984, pain in his head. He woke to see, really, you don't see nothing. Full of crap again. Simon, quit hitting my mic. Jeez. You need to go lay down, Bubba. Lay down. Because he was able to observe his surroundings. Speaking of observing your surroundings. And they were still live in Aurora. What are you doing back there again? You are a turd. My husband told me that he heard about this crime case in Oklahoma today, and I haven't looked it up or researched it yet. I'm just going by what he said. But he said there was 2 noodlers, and I guess they were noodling together. If you don't know what noodling is, it's when you fish with your hand. You go up under, I do it actually, I like to. You go up under a rock and you grab the fish out with your hand because they lay on their nest. And they're real aggressive and don't want to get off those nests, and they will fight you and bite you. But anyway, 2 noodlers were noodling. I don't know if they were on some good drugs or something, but one of the noodlers decided that the other noodler was trying to call Bigfoot in so that Bigfoot would kill him. So that didn't happen. He killed the other noodler. Only in Oklahoma or Florida. Florida are bad too. I was like, oh my God. I think I've heard it all now. Turn around. Simon says bye. He's just always got to look at me. But he says bye to y'all. Let's see if I can make his face turn. Ooh, Simon says bye. But there's Maxie too. Maxie says bye. They both say bye. All 3 boys, all 3 huge. I got my hands full, so I better go take care of them. But I love y'all, and I hope y'all have an amazing, blessed week. Bye.